In a quiet Minnesota town, nothing ever seemed out of place. It was the kind of neighborhood where people waved to each other in the morning, where houses looked ordinary, and where life felt predictable. Inside one of those homes lived Rosalie Johnson, a 62-year-old woman known for her calm personality and steady presence in her community. She was a mother, someone who had spent years building a stable life, and she worked in civic-related service roles that made her a familiar and respected figure. Living with her was her adult son, Eric Yordle. To people on the outside, it looked like a normal family arrangement, nothing unusual, nothing alarming, nothing that would ever draw attention. But behind closed doors, something was not right. Over time, tension had been growing inside the home. Like many families, they had disagreements, but according to later court records and investigative reports, there were deeper struggles present: mental health concerns, instability, and a relationship that had become increasingly strained. Still, no one outside the home could see what was building up, and no one could have predicted how it would end. The night everything changed was in July 2020. It began inside the home in Big Lake, Minnesota. At first, it was just a family interaction, something that should have been ordinary. But at some point that night, the situation escalated. Words were exchanged. Emotions rose. And then, in a moment that investigators would later struggle to fully explain in simple terms, the situation turned violent. According to court findings, Eric Yordle attacked his mother inside the home. The violence was severe and overwhelming. It did not stop quickly. It continued through different areas of the house, turning a familiar family space into a chaotic and horrific scene. By the time it ended, Rosalie Johnson had suffered fatal injuries. Hours later, the father of the household returned. What he saw when he entered the home immediately raised alarm. His son was there, and something was clearly wrong. He noticed blood and signs of extreme disturbance, and he immediately called emergency services. When police arrived, they stepped into a scene that investigators would later describe as one of the most disturbing they had encountered in a domestic setting. Officers found evidence of a violent struggle throughout the home. Rooms showed signs of chaos, and it became clear that the attack had not been contained to one space. It had moved through the house. Rosalie Johnson was found dead, and the severity of the injuries made it immediately clear this was a homicide investigation of the highest level. But what happened next would push the case into an even darker direction. According to police reports and court testimony, Eric Yordle made a chilling statement to his father during the aftermath of the incident. He said words that stunned investigators and later became widely discussed in media coverage. He claimed that the devil exists and said something to the effect of, "It's in me," along with statements implying he had engaged in extremely disturbing behavior involving his mother's body. These claims were later treated as part of the overall investigative record and examined alongside forensic evidence. Investigators proceeded carefully. The medical examiner confirmed that Rosalie Johnson died from multiple severe injuries consistent with a violent physical assault. The scene inside the home supported the conclusion that the attack had been prolonged and intense. Forensic experts documented evidence that added further disturbing context to what had occurred, and the case quickly moved into the category of first-degree murder. As the investigation developed, mental health became a central issue. Eric Yordle underwent psychiatric evaluations, and at one point he was ruled incompetent to stand trial. This paused the legal process and led to further assessments. Over time, after treatment and review, he was later found competent, allowing the case to proceed through the court system. The defense focused heavily on mental illness, arguing that his psychological condition played a major role in the events of that night. Prosecutors, however, presented the physical evidence, the sequence of events, and the nature of the attack as proof of intent and responsibility. The case moved slowly through the legal system, stretching across several years due to the seriousness of the charges and the complexity of the psychiatric evaluations. Finally, in 2026, the court reached a conclusion. Eric Yordle was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. The ruling confirmed that the court believed the attack on his mother was intentional and criminally responsible under the law. Additional proceedings were scheduled to determine sentencing considerations, including the role, if any, that mental illness would play in the final judgment. What remains after this case is not just a legal outcome, but a deeply disturbing reminder of how fragile appearances can be. From the outside, the family seemed ordinary, a mother living with her adult son in a quiet town, nothing that would attract suspicion. But inside that home, something tragic and unthinkable unfolded, ending one life and destroying another, while leaving an entire community searching for answers that may never feel complete. Because sometimes the most shocking crimes do not come from strangers. They come from within the places we think are safest.